Is life still vibrant after 60 without sexual connections? At 81, I can tell you plainly, yes. And more than that, it can be unexpectedly bright, full, and quietly fierce in ways you never guessed when you were younger. When I say this, I don't speak from books or slogans. I speak from decades of living. For a long stretch of my life, the young me was obsessed with one thing: performance. The measure of a man, in my circles and in my own head, was how well he could prove he was still desirable, still competitive, still in the game. I chased attention, I measured myself by comparisons, and I spent a good part of my time and energy maintaining an image. I don't need to recount the details. You know the rituals, the hours of second-guessing, the restless late nights, the harmless and not-so-harmless distractions. It took money, it took pride, it took relationships sometimes. It was exhausting. That pressure wasn't only personal, society fed it. The alpha myths whispered that a man's value rests on perpetual vigor. Media and marketing don't rest. They sell fear dressed as hope. Products, pills, programs promising to restore you to a past peak. Men are told to fight the clock as if slowing down equals failure. I believed some of that for years. I tacitly accepted that dimming desire would mean a dimmer life. Pause a moment. If the thought of losing sexual desire sounds like loss to you, write it in the comments below. Or if it feels like relief, write that too. I want to hear where you are. Around 60, something shifted for me. It wasn't a dramatic lightning bolt. It was more like the smoke finally cleared after years of breathing it in. One morning, I woke up with less urgency buzzing behind my thoughts. The knot in my chest that had been tied to constant proving began to loosen. I remember the clarity like a room washed with sunlight. Things looked sharper. Small pleasures became visible again. A scene will help. Picture a woodshop. The younger me imagined the woodshop as a place to impress. Big machines, big gestures. The older me discovered the joy in the grain of a board, the way the plane leaves a ribbon of shavings, the subtle smell of freshly cut pine. My hands learned patience, my attention settled. The sense of accomplishment no longer needed an audience. I learned to measure days by quiet things. A good cup of coffee with a friend where words landed true. A sunset seen from a porch with someone who doesn't need your explanations. A bench in the park where conversations are soft and long. These are intimacies that don't require sex to be deep. Sit with me as I name a few. First, the coffee conversation. It is simple and profound. Two people bring their small troubles and their small joys, and they trade them like treasured coins. No performance, just listening. Second, the silent sunset. I've shared sunsets with men who never spoke much. We simply watched the sky move through colors. In that silence, there was a fuller kind of recognition. I've been here, still here, and you are here too. Third, craft and work, the woodshop or the garden. Working side by side with another person, hands busy, breath steady, creates a kind of trust that words often fail to reach. There is warmth in the shared focus. These moments are intimate because they are honest. Shifting from a life structured around sexual validation to one rich with non-sexual intimacy felt at first like mourning. I grieved parts of myself that had been loud for so long. But grief, in time, changed its tone. What looked like loss became a kind of graduation, from a flame that had to be fanned constantly to a sage fire that warmed without burning everything around it. The energy I once poured into performance, I began to redirect. I read more. I returned to a bench in the community center, where I taught young men how to use tools. I planted tomatoes again, and learned to enjoy the slow miracle of green shoots. I picked up a neighbor's loneliness weekend after weekend and learned how to sit with it. These acts fed me in ways that were more sustaining than any quick fix. Part of this evolution is a change in identity. Masculinity, as I came to understand it, is not a static trophy. It's a series of choices. It is how you meet the world when you don't have an audience. It is loyalty, restraint, generosity, and steadiness. It is wisdom earned by the embarrassment of mistakes and the humility to admit them. When desire quieted, those other parts of me, quieter, truer, had room to breathe. They did not sweep away the younger self. They layered over him like varnish that brings out the grain. The man I am now contains the younger man, but he answers life differently. We must also speak plainly about pressure. There is an industry built on exploiting fear. It tells men that slowing down is a defect to be fixed. I won't tell you not to seek medical advice for concerns that trouble you. If you have questions about health, see a professional. But guard your heart against the messaging that reduces your worth to a narrow measure. There is dignity in accepting change. There is strength in choosing what truly matters. Let me give you practical ways that helped me cultivate vibrancy when desire wasn't the axis. These are not prescriptions, they're invitations. First, protect your attention. Our best energy is finite. Decide where it will go. I started small, an hour each morning without screens, a walk with no agenda, a book that stayed with me through the week. Attention is a currency. Spend it on things that compound value, relationships, crafts, reflection. Second, deepen non-sexual friendships. Invite a friend for coffee, really ask, "How are you?" and wait for the answer. Practice listening, offer presence. Men often underestimate the trust built by consistent presence. It's quiet work, but it builds a life with texture. Third, find a craft or hobby that asks for patience. Carpentry taught me precision and humility. Gardening taught me to accept seasons. Volunteering taught me that service is its own form of intimacy. When your hands are busy, the restless mind settles. The rewards are small at first and then compound into satisfaction that doesn't require validation. Fourth, mentor younger people. There's a particular joy in stewarding someone else's curiosity. It reconnects you to purpose and shows you that your life can still be a resource. You transmit more than knowledge, you transmit steadiness. Fifth, cultivate contemplative practices. I'm not prescribing religion or ritual specifically. Even 15 minutes of quiet reflection, a short walk where you notice 3 things you didn't before, or a few breath-focused moments can reorient you away from anxious striving. A calmer interior life creates space for wonder. These shifts brought emotional benefits I didn't expect. My mood stabilized. Joy returned in smaller, denser doses. I felt more present with my spouse, my friends, and myself. The pleasures weren't loud, they were richer. I noticed details, the way light fell on a table, the cadence of a grandchild's laugh, the gratitude with which someone accepted a favor. That attention made life feel more intense, not less. I should address an obvious objection. Some men keep living sexually active and fulfilled lives after 60. Good. That path is valid. I am not arguing for celibacy as a virtue. I am presenting one lived example of vibrancy that does not hinge on sexual connections. There is plurality in maturity. Some find ongoing sexual expression vital to their identity and joy. Others discover, as I did, that different forms of intimacy suit them better as they age. Both experiences deserve respect. Another worry I hear is, isn't this just settling? My answer, not if it's chosen. Settling implies resignation. Choosing implies discernment. When you decide to invest in deep friendships, in service, in craft, you are not giving up. You are reallocating love and attention toward things that last. That choice often brings more agency, not less. If you are younger and listening, this story isn't a distant inevitability to fear. Think of it as a map. You don't have to wait for a crisis to reassess. Some of the richest discoveries come from practicing new kinds of intimacy before the change forces you into it. Learn the language of patience now. Tend a small garden. Ask a friend deeper questions. These investments pay later in richness and freedom. If you are older and frightened by what you feel, I'm with you. Fear is a credible response. It is also not the whole story. You may move more slowly. You may say no to things you once said yes to. You may grieve. Let grief have its space. Then, gently, see what you can pick up and make your own. Small rituals. Tea with a neighbor, a weekly bench at the library, a project that requires careful work. Become anchors. Over time, Those anchors turn into a life that feels more coherent than the one become anchors. Over time, those anchors turn into a life that feels more coherent than the one ruled by anxiety and performance. So, to return to the question, is life still vibrant after 60 without sexual connections? Yes. Vibrancy changes shape, but it does not vanish. It becomes more textured. It becomes less about proving and more about being. The colors may shift, they often deepen. There is less roar and more resonance. You discover that masculinity is not a single tower to defend, but a landscape you can walk and tend. Before I close, let me ask you one last question. What would you try if the fear of losing desire wasn't the center of your choices? Take a moment to imagine one small experiment. A coffee with someone you've been meaning to know, a class, a bench, a volunteer hour, and try it this week. If you feel like sharing that plan, leave a note in the comments. Your steps may be small, but they matter. If this message landed with you, consider subscribing and share this with another man who might need the perspective. We need more conversations like this, honest, gentle, and real. May you find steady joy, clear sight, and the courage to redefine what vigor means for you. Your worth does not dim because desire changes. Character and peace are brighter lights.